video is on Pythagorean Theorem. Now, Pythagorean Theorem is a theorem that we use with only right triangles. So right here we have a right triangle. Now the two sides of a right triangle that make up the right angle are what we call the legs. The side that's across from the right triangle, that's not touching the angle, is going to be your hypotenuse. So this right here is your hypotenuse. It's the side opposite the right angle. And then the two legs that are creating that right angle are going to be your what we call legs. Okay, so the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Your legs right here are your a and your b, and it doesn't matter which leg is a or which leg is b. But your hypotenuse has to be c. That does matter. So we use this formula basically to solve a missing side of a triangle when we are trying to find all the sides of a right triangle. Now let's say you're given a right triangle and you want to know a side of the right triangle that you haven't been given. In this first example, we have a right triangle here that has two legs of 9 and 15. Now, to solve for our hypotenuse, which we're going to say is x, we're going to use our Pythagorean theorem formula. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. My a I'm going to say is 9, my b is 15. I need to square each one and then set it equal to my hypotenuse squared, which is going to be x squared. Now, you can put in 9 for a, or you can put in 15 for a. It doesn't matter. It's going to give you the same answer. Now, when you get 9 squared, you get 81, and 15 squared is 225. We still have x squared. We add these together to get 306. Now, remember when you have 306 equals x squared. To undo that, to solve for the x, you do the opposite of squaring, which is square root. So I'm going to square root both sides, and I'm going to round. Normally, with the Pythagorean theorem, you do need to round. This time, I'm going to just round to the nearest tenth. That's 1 decimal place. So I'm going to get 17.5 for my hypotenuse. So in number 1, I've got legs the size of 9 and 15, and my hypotenuse is 17.5. In this second example, we have some fractions, which I all know you get nervous about, but it's not that bad. Again, we're solving for the hypotenuse. Here are our two legs. So we use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I do 3/5 squared plus 4/5 squared equals to x squared, and x is going to be my missing side. Now, when you square 3/5, you get 9/25 plus 4/5 squared is 16/25 equals x squared. When you add these two together, you get 25 over 25, which is the same as 1. So you'll have 1 equals x squared. To undo the square, you're going to take the square root. So the square root of 1 is actually just 1. So 1 is going to be the size of this hypotenuse. Now, number 3, we are given our hypotenuse of 15 and one leg of 9. It needs us to solve for the other leg. Okay, the other leg can be either A or B, but it can't be C because that's our hypotenuse. So I use my formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This time we know one leg. I'm going to put that in for a, 9 squared, plus x, because that's our second side that we don't know, we need to solve for, equals 15 squared. This 15 is our hypotenuse, since it is opposite of the right angle. So when you get 81 plus x squared equals 225, you have to solve for x squared. To do that, we're going to subtract 81 from both sides. So 225 minus 81 gives me 144. Then I take the square root of both sides to get my answer as 12. So my triangle is going to be 9, 12, 15. Now this last example, they don't actually draw the triangle itself, but they give you your measurements. They say A is going to be 12, B you don't know, and C is going to be 13. So I use my Pythagorean theorem. I do 12 squared plus x squared plus 13 squared. 12 squared is 144 plus x squared equals 169. We're going to subtract 144 from both sides. So 169 minus 144 is 25. And I'm going to square root both sides to solve for x. And x is going to be 5. So your triangle is going to have a side of 12, another side of 5, and then a hypotenuse of 13. Now we're going to look at the converse theory for Pythagorean theorem. Now converse, all that means is the opposite or inverse, totally the other way around. So if a triangle has a side lengths of ABC and the two legs squared, then added together equals C squared, then we're going to say that that's a right triangle, and it has a hypotenuse of C. So what this allows us to do is when given the lengths of a triangle, we can see if it's a right triangle or not by just using the Pythagorean theorem. This is what we're going to do to tell somebody, yes, this is a right triangle, or no, it's not a right triangle. In these two examples, I need to see if it's a right triangle or not. This first one, I have lengths of 9, 12, and 15. Now we're always going to assume that the largest length is going to be your hypotenuse, your C value. So 9 and 12 are going to be my A and B. 15 is going to be my C. I plug it in. 9 squared plus 12 squared equals 15 squared. Now I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going to keep working on. 81 plus 144 equals 125. When I add 81 and 144, I do get 125. Notice these two sides equal each other? Then that means it's a right triangle. On this example, I have sides of 1, 2, and 3. My largest side is going to be my C. So 1 goes in for A, 2 goes in for B, and 3 goes in for C. 1 squared plus 2 squared equals 3 squared. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, and 3 squared is 9. Now when you add 1 and 4 together, it equals 5, which is not 9. This statement right here is not true. Therefore, this triangle that we are given is not a right triangle. It's a triangle with some other angle measurements, but not 9. Alright, majority of the time when you're actually going to use Pythagorean theorem in real life is going to be with word problems like this one. So I have a 16-foot ladder and it's going to be placed 4 feet from the base of a building. And I want to know how high on the building will the ladder actually reach. Well, the best way to do is to draw a picture first. Now, I am not a good artist, as you guys all know, but I've drawn a little building here where I have my ladder. My ladder is 16 feet long. That doesn't mean from here to here it's 16 feet. That means the actual ladder is 16 feet. Now remember, the base of the ladder is 4 feet from the building. So if you look at this, I have a right triangle here. Right there, where there's my hypotenuse, this is a leg, and this is a leg. I need to solve for my missing leg. So I'm going to use my Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to say I'm going to solve for a, because my b is 4. So I do a squared plus 4 squared equals 16 squared, because that's my hypotenuse. Then when I solve this, 4 squared is 16, and to get a squared by itself, I need to subtract 16 from both sides. So 256 minus 16 is 240. So I get a squared equals 240. Then I need to take the square root of 240. Now that's not a perfect square, so I'm going to have to round. So I get 15.5 feet. It's about 15.5 feet from the bottom of the building to where the ladder reaches. This last one, we have a pigeon that leaves its nest in New York City and flies 5 kilometers due east. The pigeon then flies 3 kilometers due north. And it wants to know how far is the pigeon from its nest. So just in case you forget what the directions north, east, southwest are, Right here I've drawn a compass for you, north, south, east, and west. So we start over here in New York City, NYC. That's where my nest is. It said I fly 5 kilometers due east. So the pigeon goes from New York City, then we're going to fly 5 kilometers due east, which is right here. Now it says I'm going north 3 kilometers. That means up. So I'm going from here up 3 kilometers. If you notice, you're making a right angle right here, and it wants you to find out the hypotenuse. So if the pigeon's here, it wants to know how long is it till New York. So I've got 5 as a side and 3 as a side. Use my Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now square 5, add it to 3 squared, and see what c squared is. So 25 plus 9 equals c squared. I get 34 equals c squared, and I need to take the square root of both sides to find out that the pigeon's going to be 5.8 kilometers away from its nest in New York City. And that would be your answer.